The Empty Chair. Part 1. The Pattern. I was 7 when I learned that love could be measured in applause. It was Adam's first soccer game. He was 5, stumbling across the field in shoes 2 sizes too big, chasing the ball with the graceless enthusiasm of a puppy. He didn't score. He barely touched the ball. But when the final whistle blew, my parents erupted like he'd won the World Cup. "That's our boy!" Dad's voice carried across the entire park. Mom had tears in her eyes. Actual tears, for a kid who'd spent 45 minutes running in the wrong direction. I sat on the bleachers, my spelling bee trophy heavy in my backpack. First place, district level. I'd beaten 6th graders. The principal had called me exceptional. I'd practiced for months, staying up late with flashcards, whispering words into the darkness of my room until they became part of my breath. I thought today would be different. I thought maybe, with the trophy, they'd finally see me. "Mom," I said, tugging her sleeve as we walked to the car. "Did you see my trophy? It's really big." "That's wonderful, honey." Her eyes were still on Adam, who was demanding ice cream for his amazing game. She didn't ask to see it, didn't ask how it felt to stand on that stage, to hear my name echoed through the auditorium, to finally be the one everyone looked at. Dad bought Adam a triple scoop cone. I got a single. That night, I put the trophy on my dresser where they'd see it. A week later, it was still there, gathering dust while Adam's participation certificate was framed and hung in the living room. That's when I understood. I could be exceptional, extraordinary, perfect. It would never matter as much as Adam's simply existing. The pattern repeated itself with the reliability of a metronome. Adam made the middle school soccer team, barely as a bench warmer, and Dad took off work early for a month to attend practices. I won the regional science fair with a project on water purification that a judge said could actually make a difference in developing countries, and Mom said she'd try to make it but had to help Adam organize his soccer equipment. I learned to play piano, not because anyone encouraged me, but because the school had a dusty upright in the music room, and Mrs. Henderson, the elderly music teacher, let me stay after school. I'd practice for hours, my fingers finding solace in Chopin and Debussy, in melodies that said everything I couldn't. At 16, I performed in my first recital. I played Clair de Lune flawlessly, my hands steady, my heart hammering. The audience, mostly strangers, gave me a standing ovation. My parents weren't there. Adam had a game. Not even an important game. Just a regular season game against a team they'd beaten twice already. "You understand, don't you, Gretchen?" Mom had said that morning, her hand briefly touching my shoulder. "Adam needs us there. He gets nervous." Adam didn't get nervous. Adam didn't get anything except endless chances and unconditional celebration. I stood backstage after my performance, still in my black dress, holding flowers Mrs. Henderson had bought me from her own pocket, and I called home. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. They were at dinner, celebrating Adam's 2 assists. I took the bus home alone, the flowers wilting in my lap, and something inside me wilted too. Part 2, the breaking point. High school was survival training. I learned to make myself small, to expect nothing, to celebrate my own victories in the privacy of my room where no one could diminish them with their indifference. I graduated valedictorian. My speech was about perseverance, about finding your own worth, about being the light in your own darkness. People told me it made them cry. The principal said it was the best speech he'd heard in 30 years. My parents were there. Adam had no conflicts that day, but they left immediately after the ceremony because Adam wanted to get home to play video games. We didn't go to dinner. We didn't celebrate. Mom took exactly 3 photos, all of which included Adam photobombing with ridiculous faces. "You don't mind, do you, Gretch?" Dad said, already heading to the car. It's been a long day. Long for whom? I wanted to scream. But I just nodded, clutching my diploma, watching other families take hundreds of photos, watching fathers hug their daughters like they hung the moon, watching mothers who actually saw their children College was supposed to be different. I'd gotten into a good university 2 hours away, far enough for distance, close enough that they couldn't complain I'd abandon them. I earned a partial scholarship through my grades. I worked 3 part-time jobs to cover the rest, because asking my parents for money meant hearing about how expensive Adam's club soccer was, how his equipment cost a fortune, how his tournament travel was bankrupting them. I studied marketing because I loved understanding why people chose things, why some messages resonated and others fell flat. I was good at it, really good. I made the dean's list every semester, got internships at firms that rejected hundreds of applicants, built a portfolio that my professors called professional level. I came home for holidays and birthdays, each visit a reminder of my perpetual invisibility. Adam had dropped out of community college after 1 semester. It wasn't for him, Mom explained, and was working part-time at a sporting goods store while figuring things out. This was treated as a noble journey of self-discovery. I was excelling in every measurable way, and it was treated as expected, unremarkable, barely worth mentioning. My 20th birthday fell on a Saturday in October. Sarah, my roommate and closest friend, had been planning for weeks. Nothing huge, a dinner with friends, maybe dancing after, the kind of night that marked a milestone, that made you feel celebrated and seen, and like you mattered. I'd mentioned it to my parents a month in advance, told them I'd be coming home Friday night, that we'd have family dinner, that I wanted them to meet Sarah and a few friends on Saturday evening. "We'll see," Mom had said, which I'd learned meant, probably not, but I don't want to deal with your disappointment right now. The Friday before my birthday, I was packing my overnight bag when my phone rang. Mom's name lit up the screen. "Hi, Mom, I'm just about to leave." "Gretchen, we need to talk." Her voice had that careful tone, the one she used when she was about to disappoint me, but wanted me to be reasonable about it. My hands stilled on my half-packed bag. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, exactly. It's just, well, Adam's team made it to the state tournament. It's this weekend. Sunday, actually, but we need Saturday to prepare, and my birthday is Saturday." "I know, honey, and we feel terrible about this, but it's the state tournament. This is huge for Adam. He's been working so hard." He'd been working exactly as hard as he always did, which is to say, moderately. "And we were thinking, maybe you could postpone, celebrate next weekend instead, or maybe just do something small with your friends at school." The room felt too small suddenly, the walls pressing in. "You want to cancel my birthday?" "Not cancel, postpone. Just a week." "You can't postpone a birthday, Mom. That's not how birthdays work." "Gretchen, don't be dramatic. You're 20, not 5. Birthdays aren't that important at your age. Adam's tournament is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Something cracked inside me. Not broke. Breaking would come later. This was the sound of the last bit of hope I'd been clutching finally giving way. "I've made Dean's List every semester," I said quietly. "Did you know that?" "Of course we know. When's the last time you asked about school? About my internship? About anything in my life?" "That's not fair. We're very proud of you." "But not proud enough to show up. Not proud enough to remember my birthday matters too." "This isn't about showing up, Gretchen. This is about being flexible, about supporting your brother when he needs us. Family comes first." "I'm family too," I whispered. There was a pause. Then, "Of course you are, but you're so independent, so capable. You don't need us the way Adam does. You've always been fine on your own." Fine on your own. The 4 words that had defined my entire childhood, the excuse for every absence, every forgotten event, every moment I'd stood alone in a crowd and wondered why I wasn't enough to hold their attention. I wasn't fine on my own. I'd just learned that needing them was pointless. "So you won't come to dinner tonight. You won't be here tomorrow. We'll be at the tournament, but we can do something next weekend, I promise. We'll take you somewhere nice." They wouldn't. We both knew it. Next weekend, there would be another tournament, another excuse, Another reason why Adam's needs eclipsed mine. I said, "You're not upset, are you? You understand, right?" "Sure, Mom, I understand perfectly." I hung up before she could hear my voice break. Sarah found me an hour later, sitting on my bed, staring at my unpacked bag. "What happened?" She sat beside me, her presence warm and solid and real. I told her everything, not just about the call, but about all of it. Every missed recital and forgotten achievement, every birthday that played second fiddle to Adam's schedule, every time I'd convinced myself it didn't hurt as much as it did. Jesus, Gretch, that's not okay. That's not even close to okay. They're not bad people. Adam needs more, I guess. And I don't. That's bullshit. Sarah's voice was fierce. Everyone needs to be seen. Everyone needs to matter to their parents. The fact that you can function without validation doesn't mean you should have to. I don't know what to do. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you want my honest opinion?" I nodded. "Don't go home. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until they figure out you're a person who deserves to be celebrated too." I can't just... Why not? They canceled on you. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to do what's best for you. It feels... I struggled for the word. Petty. It's not petty. It's self-preservation. Gretch, you've spent 20 years being second place. Maybe it's time to put yourself first. Part 3. The night that changed everything. I didn't go home that night. Instead, Sarah and I went to our favorite diner, the one with the sticky booths and the waitress who called everyone hun, and we ate pancakes at 11 p.m. She asked me about my dreams, my actual dreams, the ones I'd shoved down so deep I'd almost forgotten they existed. I wanted to work for a major firm, wanted to run campaigns that mattered, that changed how people thought, wanted to be excellent at something and have it recognized, wanted to build a life so full and bright that the empty spaces of my childhood couldn't touch it. "So do it," Sarah said simply. "It's not that easy." It is exactly that easy. You're already doing it. You've just been doing it while carrying their disappointment on your back. Imagine what you could do if you put it down. Saturday, my 20th birthday, I woke up in my dorm room with a text from Mom. "Have a good day, honey. We'll celebrate soon." No happy birthday. No call. Just a generic message she could have sent any day. Adam posted on social media about his tournament, tagged our parents in excited captions about how they were his biggest supporters. I stared at that post for a long time, looked at the photos of them wearing his team colors, holding signs with his number, their faces bright with pride and love. When had they ever looked at me like that? Sarah knocked on my door around noon. "Get dressed. We're doing birthday things." "Sarah, I don't really feel like..." "I don't care. You're 20. We're celebrating." She dragged me to lunch, then shopping, then to a pottery class where we made lopsided bowls and laughed until our sides hurt. That evening, 15 friends crammed into our tiny dorm common room with the cake Sarah had ordered, with gifts wrapped in newspaper comics because we were all broke college students, with off-key singing and genuine affection. "Make a wish," Sarah said, lighting the candles. I closed my eyes. The wish formed clearly, sharply, with the force of 2 decades of longing. I wish to build a life where I'm enough. That night, after everyone left, after the cake was eaten and the gifts were opened, I sat on my bed with my laptop and did something I'd never done before. I looked up apartments in the city where I'd been offered a summer internship. Real apartments, not just someday maybe daydreams. I checked my bank account, the one my parents didn't know about, funded by my jobs and my scholarship refunds. I calculated expenses, ran numbers, made spreadsheets. At 2 a.m., I filled out a rental application. At 3 a.m., I started drafting an email to my parents. At 4 a.m., I deleted it and wrote a new one. At 5 a.m., I pressed send. "Dear Mom and Dad, I'm not coming home for Thanksgiving or Christmas or any holiday until things change. I know you think I'm being dramatic. I know you think I'm overreacting to a missed birthday, but it's not about one birthday. It's about 20 years of being invisible. 20 years of watching you celebrate Adam's smallest accomplishments while my biggest achievements barely registered. I don't blame you for loving Adam. I blame you for thinking that loving him meant you had less love left for me. I'm tired of justifying my need to matter. I'm tired of being told I'm so independent when what you really mean is so easily ignored. I'm tired of shrinking myself to make room for his existence. I'm moving to the city after graduation. I have an internship that could turn into a real career. I'm going to build a life that doesn't require me to beg for scraps of attention from people who should be proud of me without conditions. When you're ready to see me, really see me, not just the convenient daughter who doesn't complain, you know how to reach me. Until then, I need space. I need to learn who I am when I'm not living in someone's shadow. Gretchen. Mom called 17 times that morning. I didn't answer. Dad sent a text. We need to talk about this. I replied, there's nothing to talk about. I've said what I needed to say. Adam sent a message that made my blood boil. Why are you being such a bitch? You're going to ruin everything for me. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I didn't realize. Just anger that my pain was inconveniencing him. I blocked his number. Part 4. Building something new. The apartment was small. A studio with windows that looked onto a brick wall, with pipes that clanked and neighbors who fought loudly at 3 a.m. It was also mine. Entirely. Completely mine. I moved in May with Sarah's help, both of us making multiple trips in her beat-up Honda, hauling trash bags full of my life up 3 flights of stairs. We assembled furniture from thrift stores, hung string lights to make the place feel less like a cave, painted one wall deep blue because I'd always wanted a blue room, and no one had ever asked what color I liked. It's perfect, Sarah said, collapsed on my secondhand couch, eating pizza from a box balanced on her knees. It wasn't perfect. It was cramped and loud and smelled faintly of the Indian restaurant downstairs. But it was mine, chosen by me, paid for by me, filled with only the things and people I wanted. The internship started in June. Hartley and Associates, a mid-sized marketing firm with a reputation for innovative campaigns. I'd interviewed 3 times, competed against 100 other candidates, and somehow convinced them I was worth the risk. My supervisor, Janet, was 50-something with silver hair she wore in a sharp bob, glasses on a chain, and a direct manner that scared most of the other interns. I loved her immediately. You're Gretchen, she said on my first day, looking over her glasses. The one with the portfolio that made our creative director actually say, wow, don't make me regret hiring you. I won't. Good. Here's a client brief. Show me what you can do. The brief was for a sustainable fashion brand trying to reach Gen Z. Most interns would have played it safe, done something predictable about saving the planet and looking good. I went different. I built a campaign around wearing your values, not just environmental values, but the courage to be different, to choose quality over trends, to be the person who didn't follow the crowd. I created mock Instagram posts, TikTok concepts, even a hashtag campaign that turned the brand's sustainability message into a challenge about authenticity. I worked on it for 3 days straight, barely sleeping, surviving on coffee and the terror that I'd blow this chance. Janet reviewed it in silence for 15 minutes that felt like 15 hours. Then she looked up and smiled. When can you start on the real campaign? The internship was supposed to last 3 months. Janet extended it to 6, then offered me a junior position. You're raw, she said, but you think differently. You see angles other people miss. Don't lose that when you learn the rules. I learned everything, absorbed every campaign strategy, every client meeting, every lesson in why certain messages worked and others failed. I stayed late, volunteered for the projects no one else wanted, treated every assignment like it was the most important thing I'd ever do. Because it was. Every successful campaign, every client who asked for me specifically, every nod of approval from Janet, they were proof. Proof that I was good at something. Proof that I could be seen for my own merit. Proof that my parents' blindness wasn't a reflection of my worth. I made friends at work. Real friends, not just colleagues. Marcus, the copywriter with a wicked sense of humor and a gift for words. Petra, the graphic designer who spoke 3 languages and made every visual stunning. David, the analyst who could find patterns in chaos. We'd grab lunch together, drinks after work, weekend brunches where we'd talk about campaigns and dreams and the ridiculous things our clients requested. They asked about my life, remembered details, showed up when I needed them. It was so different from home that sometimes I'd catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to forget about me the moment someone more interesting walked in. It never happened. I started a blog that summer, The Invisible Marketing, about campaigns and strategies, about the subtle psychology that drove consumer behavior. I wrote it at night, in my tiny apartment, pouring everything I'd learned into posts that were part analysis, part storytelling. I didn't expect anyone to read it, but people did. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Marketing professionals started following me. I got invited to podcast interviews. Companies reached out asking if I consulted. "You're building something," Janet said when I mentioned it hesitantly, afraid she'd think I was distracted from my real work. "Keep building. The best marketers are thought leaders, not just order takers." By the time I'd been at Hartley for a year, I'd worked on 12 major campaigns, 3 of which won industry awards. My name was on the team roster, my ideas were being implemented. I'd gotten 2 raises and a promotion to associate. I was 22, and for the first time in my life, I felt seen. My parents called occasionally. Awkward conversations where mom asked surface-level questions and I gave surface-level answers. Dad would get on the line, ask if I needed money. I didn't, and then run out of things to say. They never apologized, never acknowledged what had driven me away. The conversations were full of careful avoidance, both of us dancing around the crater at the center of our relationship. "Adam's doing well," Mom would say, as if I'd asked. "He's assistant managing at the store now. They really value him." I'd make appropriate noises, hold the phone away from my ear, and think about how assistant managing at a sporting goods store was wonderful while my actual career was barely mentioned. "That's great, Mom. He asks about you sometimes." I doubted that. "Tell him I said hi." "When are you coming home for a visit?" "I don't know. Work's really busy." "You work too hard, Gretchen. You should relax more." The irony was so thick I could have choked on it, but I just said, maybe, and changed the subject. Sarah visited often. She'd gotten a job at a nonprofit in the city, and we'd get dinner every few weeks, sit in my apartment with wine and takeout, talking about our lives. "You look happy," she said one night, steadying me. "Actually happy, not just okay." I am happy. Is that weird? It's not weird. It's deserved. You've built something amazing, Gretch. You should be proud. I am. And I meant it. For the first time, I was proud of myself, not in spite of my parents' indifference, but independent of it. Their approval or lack thereof didn't change what I'd accomplished. Have they come around at all? I shook my head. No. Mom still talks about Adam like he's curing cancer. Dad still thinks I'm being stubborn by not just getting over it. And how does that feel? Sad, I admitted, but also freeing? I spent so long trying to earn their attention. Now I'm just living my life. If they want to be part of it, they know where I am. You've gotten stronger. I've gotten tired of shrinking. Part 5. When the past shows up. I'd been at Hartley for 2 years when everything changed. We just landed a huge client, a tech startup going public, needing a complete brand overhaul. It was the biggest project the firm had handled in years, and Janet put me on lead. "You're ready," she said when I protested I was too junior. "Stop doubting yourself and show them what you can do." I threw myself into it completely, worked 60-hour weeks, barely slept, built a campaign strategy that was bold and risky, and exactly what they needed. The pitch went flawlessly. The client loved it. We got the contract. The industry magazine did a feature on the campaign, on me, called me a rising star in strategic marketing, used words like innovative and visionary. The article went live on a Tuesday morning. By noon, my phone was flooded with congratulatory messages from colleagues, from blog followers, from old professors. By 2 p.m., my office phone rang with an internal call. "Gretchen, you have a visitor," the receptionist said. "Says he's your brother?" My hand froze on the mouse. My brother? Should I send him back? No. Give me 5 minutes. I stood, smoothed my skirt, tried to calm the sudden hammering of my heart. Adam was here, in my office. After 2 years of silence, he'd shown up unannounced. This couldn't be good. He was waiting in the lobby, looking uncomfortable in jeans and a t-shirt among our business casual office crowd. He'd put on weight, let his hair grow shaggy. He looked older, tired, not quite the golden boy I remembered. "Gretchen." He stood when he saw me. "Adam, this is a surprise. Can we talk somewhere private?" I led him to a small conference room, my mind racing. "What are you doing here?" He saw the article about your campaign. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Okay." "It's everywhere. Everyone's sharing it, talking about how amazing you are." "I've worked hard." "Yeah," he laughed bitterly. "You always did, always the perfect one." My patience snapped. "I'm sorry, did you come here to criticize me? Because I have actual work to do." "I came because—" He ran his hand through his hair. "Do you know what it's like? Having everyone compare me to you now? Are you serious right now? People at the store saw the article. Customers. They ask if I'm related to you, if I'm in marketing too. And when I say no, I can see them thinking, what a disappointment." I stared at him, something cold and sharp forming in my chest. "Do you know what it was like growing up in your shadow? Having every single thing I did ignored while you got parades for mediocrity? I didn't ask for that. Neither did I. I didn't ask to be invisible. I didn't ask for mom and dad to cancel my birthday for your tournament. I didn't ask to spend my entire childhood wondering why I wasn't enough. You weren't invisible." Yes, I was. And now that I finally built something for myself, something that has nothing to do with you or them, you show up to make it about you again? I'm not. He struggled for words. "This is tearing the family apart." "I didn't tear it apart. I just left. Same thing." "No, it's not. You want to know the difference? I left to save myself. If that tears your life apart, maybe you should ask why you built it on my silence." He stood abruptly. "Mom and dad were right. You've changed. You've become selfish. I've become visible. Maybe that's the same thing to you." He left without another word, and I stood in that conference room, shaking with adrenaline and anger and something that felt like grief. Marcus found me 10 minutes later. "Hey, you okay?" "Someone said there was a family thing." My brother showed up. "Let me guess, he's not happy about your success." I laughed wetly. "How'd you know?" "Because people who've gotten everything handed to them hate when others work for it and win. You're a threat to his narrative now." What narrative? That he's the important one, that you're just the background character. Your success makes him confront that maybe it was never about talent or worth. Maybe it was just luck and favoritism. He thinks I'm selfish for leaving. Of course he does. Your presence there validated their treatment of you. Your absence makes them question it. That's uncomfortable for them. Easier to blame you than face their own failure. I don't know how to feel. "How about victorious?" Marcus smiled. "You left a bad situation, built an incredible career, and proved every doubt wrong. That's not selfish, that's survival." I thought that would be the end of it, that Adam would go home, complain about me, and I'd go back to my life. I was wrong. 3 days later, my office phone rang again. This time, the receptionist sounded nervous. Gretchen, there are people here to see you. They say they're your parents. They don't have an appointment, but they're insisting. Send them back. My voice was steady, but my hands weren't. They appeared in my office doorway. Mom in a cardigan, Dad in his work clothes, both looking out of place in my world. Gretchen? Mom's voice was tentative. Your office is lovely. What are you doing here? We needed to talk to you, Dad said. Adam came home very upset. Good, he should be. That's not fair. Mom stepped inside, closing the door. He's your brother. He came here to reconcile and you attacked him. Is that what he told you? I leaned back in my chair, forced myself to stay calm. Did he mention showing up unannounced to complain that my success makes him look bad? He's struggling. I've been struggling my entire life. Did you notice? Did you care? That's not fair, Dad repeated. We did our best. No. My voice cut through the room like glass. I'm done minimizing. I'm done pretending it didn't hurt. I'm done making myself smaller so you can feel better about how you treated me. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We never meant to hurt you. But you did. Intention doesn't erase impact. What do you want from us? Dad's voice was frustrated. You want us to apologize for loving your brother? I want you to acknowledge that loving him didn't require neglecting me. I want you to admit that you made choices, constant, repeated choices, to prioritize him over me. I want you to see that I deserved better. You always were so dramatic. Get out. The words came out quiet, but they landed like thunder. Get out of my office. Gretchen, I said get out. I have a meeting in 10 minutes with a client who respects my work. I don't have time for people who spent 20 years proving they don't. Part 6. The boundaries. They left. Mom crying, Dad angry, both of them looking at me like a stranger. Maybe I was. The daughter who'd accepted crumbs had died the night I sent that email. The woman I'd become didn't settle for less than she deserved. I made it through my client meeting on autopilot, made it home, collapsed on my couch with takeout I couldn't eat and wine I drank too fast. Sarah arrived within an hour of my SOS text. They showed up at your work? She was furious. That's completely out of line. I think they're the one being unreasonable. Of course they do. You're not playing your role anymore. The invisible daughter who made their favoritism easy, she's gone. This new version holds them accountable, and they hate it. Part of me wants to apologize, to smooth it over, to go back to how things were. No. Sarah grabbed my shoulders. Listen to me. You can't go back. That version of you was suffocating. This version is thriving. Don't sacrifice your growth for their comfort. What if I lose them completely? What if you do? Gretch, what are you actually losing? People who don't see you, who've never celebrated you, who show up in your life only when your success threatens their narrative? They're my family. Family is supposed to love you, support you, celebrate you. What they gave you wasn't family. It was obligation with conditions. I didn't hear from them for 3 weeks. Then, on a random Tuesday evening, my phone rang. Mom's name. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Gretchen. Her voice was small. I've been thinking about what you said. Okay? And I think you might be right. About some things. I waited. I talked to my therapist. I've been seeing someone, trying to understand. And she helped me see that maybe we did favor Adam. Maybe we did take you for granted. Maybe? We did. Her voice cracked. We did take you for granted. You were always so capable, so independent. You never seemed to need us the way he did. I did need you. I just learned not to show it, because showing it changed nothing. She was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. I'm sorry we made you feel invisible. I'm sorry we missed so much. I'm sorry we didn't see you. The apology I'd waited 22 years to hear, and it felt hollow. Not because it wasn't sincere, but because words couldn't give me back the childhood I'd lost. Thank you for saying that. Is there a way to fix this, to start over? I don't know, Mom. I honestly don't know. What do you want from us? I want you to see me. Not the successful version you can brag about now, but me, the person I've always been. I want you to care about my life not because it's impressive, but because it's mine. I want you to show up without being asked. I want you to remember important dates. My voice broke. I want you to love me the way you've always loved Adam, unconditionally, without me having to earn it. We do love you. Then prove it. Not with words, with actions. Consistent, reliable, long-term actions that show I matter as much as he does. She whispered. We'll try. That's all I'm asking. Part 7. The life I built. They did try. It was clumsy and inconsistent and sometimes frustrating. Mom called every week, asked about work, remembered details. Dad sent articles about marketing he found interesting. They congratulated me when I got another promotion, when my blog hit 100,000 followers, when I spoke at an industry conference. It wasn't perfect. Old patterns died hard. Sometimes Mom would slip, would mention Adam's small accomplishments with the same fervor she always had, would forget to ask about my life. Sometimes Dad would suggest I was too hard on Adam, would imply I should make peace, but they were trying, and I was learning to accept imperfect effort over perfect neglect. Adam and I didn't speak. I wasn't ready, and neither was he. Maybe someday we'd find a way to be siblings instead of competitors. Maybe not. Either way, my worth wasn't dependent on his validation. At 25, I became the youngest senior strategist Hartley had ever promoted. Janet threw me a party, the whole office. Champagne and cake and speeches about what an asset I was to the team. You've exceeded every expectation, Janet said in her toast. You came in as an intern with raw talent and became someone we genuinely can't imagine working without. Here's to everything you've already accomplished and everything you will. The office erupted in applause, and I stood there, surrounded by people who knew me, who valued me, who celebrated me, and I felt something break open in my chest. Not breaking apart, but breaking free. This was what it felt like to be seen. Sarah was there, having snuck out of work early. Marcus and Petra and David and a dozen others who'd become not just colleagues, but genuine friends. People who showed up for me, who remembered my birthday, who asked how I was doing and actually listened to the answer. After the party wound down, Janet pulled me aside. I want to talk to you about something, she said. The partners are opening a new division, digital strategy and brand innovation. We want you to head it. Head it? I stared at her. Janet, I'm 25. And you're brilliant. You see connections others miss. You understand how to make brands resonate. You've built a personal platform that brings clients to us. Age is just a number, Gretchen. Talent is what matters. I don't know what to say. Say yes, then go celebrate. You've earned this 1,000 times over. I called Sarah from the elevator, my hands shaking. I got it. They want me to head the new division. Her scream of joy probably damaged my eardrum, but I didn't care. We're celebrating, right now. I'm calling everyone. Be at Rossetti's in an hour. Sarah, it's Tuesday. I don't care if it's Tuesday in a thunderstorm during a plague. You're being celebrated tonight, whether you like it or not. Rossetti's was our favorite Italian place, the one with the terrible lighting and the incredible pasta and the owner who remembered your order after one visit. Sarah had somehow rallied 15 people on an hour's notice. The table was chaos. Everyone talking over each other, toasting with cheap wine, making speeches that were half embarrassing and wholly sincere. To Gretchen, Marcus raised his glass, who proves every day that being underestimated is just fuel for becoming unstoppable. To Gretchen, Petra added, who left a bad situation and built something beautiful instead of staying bitter. To Gretchen, Sarah finished, her eyes bright with tears, my best friend, who taught me that the family you choose matters as much as the family you're born into. I ugly cried into my pasta, didn't even care. That night, alone in my apartment, bigger now with actual furniture and art on the walls and plants I managed to keep alive, I opened my laptop and looked at the blog post I'd been drafting for weeks. The weight of being unseen. How I left my family to find myself. I'd written it and deleted it a dozen times, afraid it was too personal, too raw, too much. But watching my friends celebrate me tonight, feeling the weight of genuine love and recognition, I realized this story wasn't just mine. It belonged to everyone who'd ever felt invisible, who'd ever wondered if they mattered, who'd ever had to choose between being seen and keeping the peace. I published it at midnight. By morning, it had 10,000 shares. By afternoon, 50,000. By the end of the week, it had gone viral, featured in online magazines, discussed on podcasts, shared by therapists and life coaches, and people who said, this is my story too. The response was overwhelming. People shared their own stories of favoritism, of being overlooked, of making the painful choice to distance themselves from families who couldn't see their worth. Some had rebuilt relationships, some hadn't. All of them had found ways to build lives where they mattered. A literary agent reached out. Would I consider expanding the blog post into a book? A TED Talk organizer contacted me. Would I speak about building self-worth outside of familial validation? Major news outlets wanted interviews. Not about marketing, about this, about the courage it took to leave, about what happens when you choose yourself. This is bigger than you expected, Janet said when I told her about it all. I just wanted to share my truth. You did. And in doing so, you gave voice to millions of people who thought they had to stay silent. That's powerful, Gretchen. Don't underestimate what you've done. Part 8. Full circle. The book took a year to write. I worked on it nights and weekends, between campaigns and client meetings, pouring everything into pages. Not just my story, but the lessons I'd learned, the framework for building self-worth, the strategies for setting boundaries with people who'd never respected them. Choosing Yourself, a guide to thriving after familial neglect, published when I was 26. It debuted at number 3 on the bestseller list. My parents bought a copy. I know because Mom called me, crying. I read it, all of it, in one sitting. Gretchen, I had no idea how much we hurt you. I told you multiple times. I know, but reading it, seeing it all laid out, understanding the full weight of what we did. Her voice broke. How do you forgive something like that? I'm still figuring that out. Do you think you ever will? I don't know, but I know that forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, or going back to how things were. I've built a life I love. Whether you're part of it or not is up to you. We want to be. We want to do better. Then do better. Not for a week or a month, for good. Prove to me that I'm not just important when I'm successful or when I'm making waves. Prove that you love me when I'm ordinary, too. They came to my book launch. Both of them, dressed up, looking uncomfortable in the trendy bookstore with its Edison bulbs and exposed brick. Adam wasn't with them. I hadn't invited him, and they hadn't asked if they could bring him. Mom hugged me carefully, like I might break. Your speech was beautiful. Thanks. You've built something remarkable. I have. Dad shifted awkwardly. We're proud of you. I know we should have said it more, should have shown it, but we are. I looked at them. These people who'd given me life, but hadn't known how to see it. who'd loved me but hadn't known how to show it, who were trying now, in clumsy, late ways, to bridge a gap that might be too wide to cross. "I appreciate you coming," I said finally. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was acknowledgement. That they'd shown up. That they were trying. That maybe someday the wound they'd left would scar over enough that we could build something new on top of it. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, I'd survived them. I'd built a life so full and bright that their absence didn't leave me hollow. That was the real victory. Part 9. Confrontation Redux. 6 months after the book launch, Adam reached out. Not through our parents, directly. An email at 11 p.m. on a random Thursday. Subject: "I read your book. Gretchen, I finally read Choosing Yourself. Took me 6 months to work up the courage. I kept making excuses. Didn't have time, wasn't interested, didn't care what you had to say about the family. Truth is, I was scared. Scared of what you'd written about me. Scared of seeing myself through your eyes. I was right to be scared. Reading about the birthday, about them canceling your celebration for my tournament, seeing it from your perspective instead of mine, I felt sick. I'd never thought about what that did to you. I was 17, focused on the tournament, convinced the world revolved around my needs. I didn't consider that you had needs too. I've spent a lot of time thinking about why I showed up at your office that day, why your success made me so angry. I think it's because I'd always been told I was special, that I was the one who'd do great things. When you actually did them, it broke something in me, made me realize maybe I wasn't special. Maybe I was just spoiled. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what they did to you. What I did to you by accepting their favoritism without question. What I did to you by making your pain about my discomfort. I'm working with a therapist, trying to figure out who I am when I'm not the golden child. It's harder than I thought. Turns out, when you build your identity on being everyone's favorite, you don't have much left when that goes away. I'm not asking for a relationship. I know we're not there. Maybe we'll never be there. But I wanted to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I showed up at your office and made your success about me. I'm sorry I benefited from their neglect of you. I'm sorry I never stood up for you, not even once. You deserve better. You deserved a family that saw you, a brother who protected you instead of eclipsing you. I'm sorry I wasn't that brother. I read the email 3 times, sat with it for days, showed it to Sarah, to my therapist, to Janet when we grabbed coffee and she asked why I seemed distracted. "What do you want to do?" my therapist asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to ignore it. Part of me wants to respond. Part of me is still so angry I could scream. All of those feelings are valid. He hurt me for years, and now he's sorry because I wrote a book that made him confront it? Does the timing matter if the apology is genuine? I don't know. Does it count as genuine if he only apologized after I became successful enough to ignore? That's something only you can answer. I waited 2 weeks before responding. Not to punish him, but because I needed to be sure of what I wanted to say. Adam, thank you for reading the book. Thank you for the apology. I'm not ready to have a relationship. I don't know if I ever will be. Too much has happened. Too much time has passed. We're strangers who shared DNA and a traumatic childhood. But I appreciate you taking accountability. I appreciate you doing the work to understand your role in what happened. That couldn't have been easy. I hope therapy helps you build an identity that isn't dependent on being favored. I hope you find your own version of success that has nothing to do with comparison or competition. I hope you learn to be happy for people who outshine you, because that's what being a good person requires. I don't forgive you yet, maybe someday, but I don't hate you either. That's the best I can offer right now. Gretchen. Part 10. The Life I Chose. At 28, I sat in a corner office with windows overlooking the city. My name on the door in letters that still made me stop and stare sometimes. Gretchen Morrison, Director of Digital Strategy and Brand Innovation. The division I'd built had 15 people now, had won industry awards, had brought in clients that made Hartley a destination firm instead of just a good option. My blog had evolved into a consulting business. The book had led to a second book, this one about building professional success when you come from dysfunction.
I'd spoken at 3 TED conferences, been featured in Forbes and Fast Company, been called an expert on resilience and self-made success. But the thing I was most proud of? The life I'd built around the career. I had Sarah, who'd stood by me through everything, who was now my business partner in the consulting firm we'd started on the side. I had Marcus and Petra and David and a dozen others who'd become the family I chose. I had a therapist who'd helped me understand that I could be both wounded and whole, that healing wasn't linear, that choosing myself wasn't selfish. I had an apartment I loved, spacious now, filled with light and books and art that meant something to me. I had a dating life that was messy and awkward and occasionally wonderful. I had hobbies that had nothing to do with productivity. Pottery classes on Tuesdays, a book club that met monthly, weekend hikes with friends where we didn't talk about work at all. I had a life that was entirely mine, built from scratch, chosen piece by piece. My parents and I had settled into something that wasn't quite reconciliation, but wasn't estrangement either. They called regularly now, remembered my birthday, showed up for it even, with a cake and gifts and genuine celebration. Asked about my life before talking about Adam's. Tried, in their imperfect way, to make up for lost time. It would never be what it could have been if they'd gotten it right the first time, but it was something. And I'd learned that something was better than the nothing I'd lived with for so long. Adam and I exchanged emails a few times a year. Surface level stuff. Holiday greetings, congratulations on achievements, the occasional meme that made one of us think of the other. We weren't friends. We weren't really siblings. We were 2 people working through shared trauma from opposite ends, trying to figure out if there was a way to coexist without causing each other pain. Maybe someday we'd get there. Maybe we wouldn't. Either way, my happiness didn't depend on his participation in it. On my 30th birthday, Sarah threw me a party at a rooftop bar. 60 people showed up, colleagues and friends and clients turned friends, and the entire staff of my division. Janet gave a speech that made me cry. Marcus performed a rap about my greatest campaign victories that was both terrible and perfect. Petra made a slideshow of my professional evolution that charted my growth from nervous intern to confident director.
I looked directly at the camera, speaking to every person who'd ever felt unseen, who'd ever wondered if they mattered, who'd ever been told they were too sensitive or too dramatic or too demanding for wanting basic love and respect. Your need to be seen isn't negotiable. Your worth isn't dependent on their ability to recognize it. And choosing yourself, choosing to leave a situation where you're consistently diminished, isn't selfish. It's survival. And if they never come around, if the family never acknowledges what they did, then you build a new family with friends who show up, with mentors who celebrate you, with people who see your value without you having to prove it constantly. Blood doesn't guarantee love, and love doesn't require blood. Last question, the host said. If you could go back and tell your 20-year-old self one thing, the girl who was about to cancel her birthday and leave home, what would it be? I smiled, thinking of that girl in her dorm room, drafting an email at 4 a.m., terrified and brave, and on the edge of everything. I'd tell her, the life you're afraid to reach for? the one where you matter, where you're celebrated, where you're enough, it's waiting for you. And it's even better than you imagined. So pack your bags, send that email, and don't look back. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so fulfilling that their approval becomes irrelevant. You've chosen yourself consistently, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. That's when choosing yourself matters most. The podcast host leaned forward, her expression intense. So after everything, the neglect, the leaving, the years of estrangement, do you think it was worth it? Choosing yourself over family? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Even though it cost you your relationship with your brother, even though your parents missed years of your life, they didn't just miss years of my life. They missed my whole childhood by choice. Me leaving wasn't what broke the family. The family was already broken. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. Some listeners might say that family is family, that you should forgive and move forward. And I did forgive, but forgiveness doesn't mean going back to being hurt. It doesn't mean accepting scraps of attention when I deserve full meals of love. Forgiveness means releasing the anger, making peace with what happened, and choosing not to let their failure define my worth. What would you say to someone listening who's in a similar situation, who feels invisible in their own family? I looked directly at the camera, speaking to every person who'd ever felt unseen, who'd ever wondered if they mattered, who'd ever been told they were too sensitive or too dramatic or too demanding for wanting basic love and respect. Your need to be seen isn't negotiable. Your worth isn't dependent on their ability to recognize it. And choosing yourself, choosing to leave a situation where you're consistently diminished, isn't selfish. It's survival. And if they never come around, if the family never acknowledges what they did, then you build a new family with friends who show up, with mentors who celebrate you, with people who see your value without you having to prove it constantly. Blood doesn't guarantee love, and love doesn't require blood. Last question, the host said. If you could go back and tell your 20-year-old self one thing, the girl who was about to cancel her birthday and leave home, what would it be? I smiled, thinking of that girl in her dorm room, drafting an email at 4 a.m., terrified and brave, and on the edge of everything. I'd tell her, the life you're afraid to reach for, the one where you matter, where you're celebrated, where you're enough, it's waiting for you. And it's even better than you imagined. So pack your bags, send that email, and don't look back. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so fulfilling that their approval becomes irrelevant. You've chosen yourself consistently, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. That's when choosing yourself matters most. After the podcast wrapped, I walked out into the late afternoon sun, my phone already buzzing with messages from people who'd watched the live stream, notifications from blog followers, from readers, from strangers who said my story gave them courage. But the message that stopped me was from an unknown number. This is Adam. I listened to the podcast. You were right about everything. I'm proud of you, not because of what you've accomplished professionally, but because you had the courage to leave when staying would have killed who you were meant to become. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I was part of why you had to leave. I hope someday we can have a real relationship. But if not, I hope you deserved better. And I'm glad you went out and got it. I stood there on the sidewalk, reading it 3 times, feeling something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close. The recognition that people could grow, could change, could finally see you even if it took them years to get there. I didn't respond immediately. Maybe I would later. Maybe I wouldn't. The beauty of the life I'd built was that I got to decide, on my timeline, according to my needs, without apologizing for protecting myself. My phone rang. Sarah, dinner tonight? The whole crew wants to celebrate your podcast. I thought we were celebrating my promotion last week. We're always celebrating something with you, Gretch. Get used to it. That's what happens when you build a life full of people who actually see you. They find reasons to celebrate constantly. I laughed, feeling light, feeling seen, feeling loved. Rossetti's at 7. Obviously, where else? That night, surrounded by friends at a too-small table in a restaurant with terrible lighting and incredible pasta, I looked around at the life I'd built from nothing but determination and the refusal to accept being invisible. This was what choosing yourself looked like. Not perfect, not without scars, not without the occasional ache for what could have been, if my family had gotten it right the first time. But it was mine. Entirely, completely, beautifully mine. And I was enough. I'd always been enough. They'd just been too blind to see it. But I wasn't blind anymore, and I'd never be invisible again.